We're back. Hello and welcome to the Talking NorCal podcast, the official podcast of Active NorCal. I am your host, Zach O'Brien, and with me here, as always, it's the legend, the B.O.B. Brian O'Brien. How you doing?
Happy to be here.
We're back.
It's been too long.
It's been a while. If you haven't seen much from this podcast, that's because we took a prolonged break. A lot has happened in our lives since our last podcast, and but you know, we've always had the itch to come back and do it. And you happy to be here?
I'm happy to be here, and the audience wanted it,
dude. I get it's emails all the time. Where's the podcast? And so we just had to get back on this bike. We had to get back on this
for
horse.
You,
yes,
the audience.
So we've got a lot to go over today. We usually in this podcast will do news, we'll do some stories, and then we'll do an interview. Because it's been a while, because I want to cover some news from the year, we're going to do no interview. We're just going to cover a ton of different stuff today. We're going to, start riding this bike again, get our sea legs under us. And then next week we'll be back with interviews, and we'll start doing it like we used to. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's start with the Tahoe's Hella NorCal.
NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and I could spend all day just chilling in the South Bay. We're NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and Darren knows how to kick it down in Santa Cruz. We're NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and we get a little cray-cray when we visit the East Bay. We're NorCal, we're hella NorCal.
So it has been 2 years.
The last pod was March 31st, 2022.
2022, that was the 40th anniversary of the big avalanche at Alpine Meadows, so we had those guys on. But yeah, so it's been a while. Both of us have had both professional and personal stuff going on.
As everyone has.
What have you been up to the last couple of years, Bob?
I tried to think about it. A bunch of stuff. I don't know. I've had several jobs, bounced around the wine industry, bounced around some corporate event stuff, doing a bunch of contract work right now, but kind of stuck with Active NorCal this whole time. We've been developing it as a brand. You've done a great job. We brought back the magazine, which shout out to the magazine. If you guys haven't yet subscribed, go for it. And that's taken some work, but life goes on. Here we are. I'm happy. We're both still here in Sacramento and playing golf a lot.
Yeah. So, we've just been really busy with Active, and honestly, these podcasts are a lot more work than people think. And so when we took a break, we didn't think it'd be that long, but it really is just a lot of work. But, again, we had so many people asking us for it that we thought, what the hey, let's do it.
We enjoy doing the podcast. It's fun. But it is a lot of work, and sometimes there are other things that pay the bills that we have to kind of focus on a little bit more. And
right.
We don't yet have a sponsor for the podcast, so this is all just extra stuff that we're going to be doing. But we do love doing it, and so we are now back, and we're going to stay committed to that.
And I've seen other podcast numbers that are, like in a small niche like we are, and we do better than all of them. So the things will come, sponsorships will come. I know we're uploading all this on YouTube, by the way. So if you're listening to this on podcast, go to our YouTube page. We're going to do a bunch of stuff on there. So we've been really busy developing the magazine. We're developing multiple things with Active NorCal. I also had a child. So
shout out.
That's taken a lot of my time, this probably would have come sooner if it weren't for that little guy. So it's been a busy couple years, but we're back. We're ready to roll.
We are indeed. I'm very excited about it.
So before we get into all the stuff we have to talk about, we have a million things to talk about. The magazine is back. So I just... a lot of people don't know, we actually started as a print magazine back in Reading in
2014.
Our first issue was January 2014. And we ran that magazine.
Issue one
right there. Yeah, I don't know if you could see it on camera. Probably not. And so that's my background, and this business's background, this company's background is printing magazines, and we did it for 2 years in Reading, And that's when I got really into digital publishing. And so we moved to a digital
blog style website.
Yeah, which has done really well over the past 10 years. And, I was looking, I like to switch things up every now and then, as I think any business should. And I was just looking at our business model, the digital publishing business model, and the print publishing business model. And I think print is back. I like print magazines. Like, to me, sitting down with a magazine, putting your phone away, not having the TV on, whatever, and just getting lost in whatever you're reading, long form content is something I think everyone craves nowadays. So that was sort of the impetus for bringing it back.
Yeah, people say print is dead, but then when it went away, people are like, well, I kind of do like it, And so after that, the hiatus, we brought back the magazine, and it's all exclusive content. So yes, the blog is still fully functioning, fantastic news source, website, all things active lifestyle in Northern California. But the magazine specifically is very exclusive content that you will not find on the blog. The only way you will find it is by subscribing to the magazine.
Yes, and it's $30 a year. And we should probably give a coupon code. Maybe we'll give a coupon code after our break.
Yeah, sure. We'll develop that idea.
Actually, I'm doing it right now. Before we upload this, it's Talking NorCal is the promo code when you go to buy the Active NorCal subscription. Talking NorCal, get $10 off a $30 subscription. Remind me to do that before we upload the pod. But yeah, so it is long form content. I think we're doing a really good job. In terms of getting our sea legs back, I had to get my sea legs back. Our first issue came out in January, a nice picture of Mount Shasta. We got all sorts of great, where to ski in Tahoe and a guide to Yosemite in the winter. The hot springs of Mammoth. There's all sorts of great stuff. So this is going to come out every November and every May. Sort of a winter spring thing. We're going to do 2 issues at least for this next year, and then we might push it to 4. We'll see. We came out with our second one in the spring, summer. I got Fern Canyon here on the cover. We got great articles, including you had a nice article about places to eat. If anyone doesn't know, Bob is the master chef of the program.
Oh, that's something I did. I was on MasterChef.
Again, that's right.
Oh, yeah. So one of the things that I did do since the last time was I did appear on MasterChef again. Now, if you missed it, that's okay. So did everybody else. I was on one episode. They kind of montaged through my segment. So if you didn't see me, don't worry. Most people didn't. And honestly, I'm glad because I overcooked my steak a little bit, and I'd rather it not just hang over my head and just be this clip that I keep getting referenced in. All of the MasterChef content that I still see is positive stuff generally. So that would have been me just getting eliminated because I overcooked the steak on the very first episode next to my good buddy Cowboy Newton. But yeah, that's one thing that I did. If you missed it, that's okay. So did I.
That's funny. Yeah, I forgot that happened in the last 2 years. But
yeah, I still know how
we've
to cook.
been busy. We really have.
There's just a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah.
Oh, back to let's hammer down this promo code, by the way, since you just did it on the fly. Promo code to $10 off a $30 subscription. Talking NorCal, all caps, no spaces.
The caps doesn't matter. The spaces matter. Just Talking NorCal.
No spaces.
No spaces, $10 off. And we'll keep that promo code going for a while. If not, just indefinitely. If you listen to this pod, just take the $10 off.
We'll see.
It's $20 for a premium magazine. It's almost a piece of art that you get to
literally
put.
The back cover isn't even sold. It's a gorgeous piece of art.
We're never selling the back cover. I'm sticking to that.
Never seen that.
But anyway, we got a bunch of really cool, in-depth, articles about different things that are happening in NorCal. We got some great this most recent issue had, the 7 most iconic hikes in Northern California. We do places to eat. We do history and science and all that good stuff. We did a deep dive on wolves, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So go subscribe. We appreciate the support. Are Are we all caught up? Are we all caught up? Should
Probably not, but we'll think of other things as
Yeah.
the pod progresses.
All right, I think we should get into the NorCal notes.
You ready for the first
Let's
NorCal
do
note
it.
of the week since we've been back? Okay, great. It's tough to start with the negative news, but we kind of always just tend to do that. Historic fire lookout cabin destroyed by the park fire in Lassen. I gotta get my sea legs back. Let's do that one more time. Take two. We're gonna keep all of this in. NorCal notes of the week. First story back. The historic fire lookout cabin destroyed by a park fire in Lassen National Forest. Why am I just struggling with this? Go ahead.
Lassen National Forest. So it's the McCarthy Point Lookout Cabin. Now, a lot of people might not know about this, but this is one of the most popular. This was one of the most popular cabins that you can rent in Northern California. It was big in the Lassen National Forest in the Ishi Wilderness right there. And why it is particularly interesting to me is it was in our magazine just a couple months ago. We did a big highlight on how you can stay there, how you can rent it. So, this is why, well, we have long form content, but also we can update you on our website, activenorcal.com, because it's crazy. So the park fire, if you've been living in a cave, the park fire was started in Bidwell Park in Chico, quickly spread all the way north, to it basically hit Lassen Volcanic National Park. It burned through the Ishi Wilderness. It burned through a ton of homes and everything, and it includes this beautiful 90-year-old lookout cabin. Now the foundation, the concrete foundation, is still there. So my guess is they'll try to rebuild,
Maybe.
But it's going to be a couple of years.
Yeah, originally built in 1936. So what came to me when I read this is that, this is no longer an observation. This is what you can rent it out, right? So
which is most of them now, because they have all sorts of technology to look at fires.
But my mind went to, would this have burned down had they still been using it? Because if they were still using it, they would make sure that it is basically fire retardant, right? That there is enough debris away from it to where it wouldn't be at risk. Do you agree with that opinion? If it was a still active lookout observation tower, it wouldn't have burned because they would have put resources behind it.
Yes, it would have, and I'll tell you why. There's not enough resources. They put their resources towards communities, towards homes, towards making sure people are safe. And so the Ishi Wilderness is this vast wilderness in Lassen National Forest, and both the U.S. Forest Service and Cal Fire has basically said, if there aren't communities in the way, we're going to let this stuff burn, because everyone knows we've had tough forest management over the past 20 to 50 years here in California. So now they're when these fires break out, they're letting these large sections burn because it creates healthier forest.
Totally agree with that. But my point was basically, if this property was managed by the Forest Service or Cal Fire or whatever, the property itself would probably be more able to sustain a fire like that. Like they chose this location as a lookout because it could see very far, right? But they definitely would have had to have planned about there being fire in and around it, so they would have prepared for that. But because this was in private hands and it was...
Well, no, it's not in private hands.
Well,
the U.S. Forest Service rents it out.
But they probably weren't maintaining it like they were. Basically, like a base.
You could put like a wrap around it. They have those wraps that they do.
And just even clearing vegetation around it for 30, 50 yards or what have you. I'm sure that they weren't paying as much attention to doing it because it was just more of a luxury item.
Yeah, it's just priorities. I mean, the fire burned over 700 structures, most of which were homes. So that's their priority. And
Totally.
and yeah, this is probably going to cost the taxpayers money to bring it back, but it does pay for itself in terms of people renting it out and staying there.
Well,
so
how long does it take to pay back what it's going to cost to rebuild? It's a pretty big building. I'm sure it's going to be.
It's actually not that big. What's the square footage? I don't have the square footage here.
3,600 glass
3,600.
That's an elevation. Of
Yeah, that's elevated. Yeah, it's not that big. It's real. They build these fire towers for 1 or 2 people to live in. So these aren't that. That one's actually bigger than most of them that you'll find. But nonetheless, I don't know what they'll do.
We're going to see more historic buildings burn. It's just, this is Northern California. This stuff happens. Yes, it's sad, but this is Mother Nature.
There's been multiple fire lookouts that have burned in the Lassen area just within the last 2 or 3 years. So,
okay, let's get to the next story. Now, the next story is, we talked a lot about wolves and wolf packs previously in our podcast history, and it's a subject that some people love, some people hate. Either way, I love this story. California wolf population nearly doubles with 30 new pups in 2024.
It's fascinating news because I actually wrote this giant article in the recent issue of the Active NorCal Magazine, where I'm going to mispronounce her name, and I'm so mad at myself. Amaruk Wise, I believe is how you pronounce it, where I spoke with her about, wolves in California, and they're coming back. And I wrote this article before this study came out from the California Department of Fish and Game, that 5 of the 7 wolf packs in California had pups in 2024, which equaled 30 new pups, essentially doubling the state's population to 65. So it went from 35 to 65 in just a year. It's pretty freaking astounding. And I think we're going to continue to see this, because now these pups are going to go off. They're going to meet each other. They're going to form their own packs, and they're going to continue to have new wolf packs. So it's big news for wolves in California.
It'd be fascinating to ask her what the percentage of these pups should survive into adulthood, because it's not 100%, right? Of 30 pups, 75? Do you think will survive?
75%?
I'm asking your opinion. What do you think?
They probably have a pretty good survival rate.
I mean, being in packs, they can protect their young, but there's always disease. There's always things that can occur.
Well, the thing is they, they're not really competing with each other for resources very much. So they do have, for the most part, most of these packs have unlimited resources in terms of food. So I would think that a lot. Now, it's interesting with these pups. Some of these wolves get collared. Some do not. So sometimes, wolves go off on solitary movement and they move on their own.
Lone wolves, as I say.
Lone wolf is the known phrase. And some of them could wander up into Oregon. Some of them could go over to Nevada. And so they don't know if they died or if they just simply went off on their own. So it's really hard to track this sort of stuff. But it is fascinating, and I'm not gonna go too much into it, because if you really want to learn about wolves, you got to subscribe to the Active NorCal magazine. We deep dive on it, but wolves actually provide quite a lot of benefits to ecosystem. They are an alpha animal, essentially, which means they control all other populations. So not to go too far on this, but these wolves came back to California through the Yellowstone reintroduction program, where they actually brought wolves from different places, placed them in Yellowstone. And what they found is all the other animals in the ecosystems just completely change and actually thrive in this situation. So deer used to just sit in the field and do whatever they wanted because they didn't have a predator coming after them. So what they found, and I think it was Wisconsin has new wolf populations, what they found is deer stopped getting hit by cars as much because they're faster, they're more alert. It helped the ecosystem where beavers could now thrive. So beavers are now building dams in Yellowstone, and fishing is better. So there's all sorts of different reasons why wolves are good for the environment. Also, wolves just do not attack people as much as you might read in like comment sections, which I unfortunately do all the time. It's not dangerous for people. Yes, there are cattle issues and cattle predations.
It's the cattle farmers that don't like the wolves,
which
generally.
the state is trying to financially compensate them for this type of thing and financially set them up for security against wolves. But really, and this is I'm open to other opinions on this, but I think this is good news.
No, totally. And your analogy of how it makes the entire ecosystem better reminded me of, the show Catfish.
Yeah.
How it started with a documentary.
Yeah.
Basically about how a guy got tricked on social media into falling in love with a girl who was not a girl or not the person they said they were. But in the documentary, which was the catalyst of the entire show on MTV, there's a guy or a girl, I don't even remember exactly, that talks about why it's called catfishing. And I'm totally going to butcher the story, but it's something along the lines of like Chinese fishermen, like salmon fishermen, would be bringing a whole boatload of living salmon to, like, let's say the United States, long journey, and these fish would deteriorate in the journey. But they found that if they threw in a catfish, it would keep them all on their toes, and that those fish would end up in better shape when they got to their destination because they were on high alert. It's the same thing. So I think that analogy is absolutely spot on. It's true, and I love seeing them back.
Yeah, I was wondering where you're going with the MTV's catfish story, but no, it's, you think about it in your everyday life where it's like people that motivate you to be better, or things that motivate you to be better, whether, that's in a bad way, like, yeah, deer are better because they're scared. Yeah, that kind of sucks for the deer, but they're better off for it. They're in better shape. They're living the lives that they were historically living this entire time. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm really looking forward to seeing what the number spikes to in 2025, because if it doubles again, I mean, we're really going to have a full thriving population, and the controversy surrounding them is only going to get crazier.
They will continue to grow, and there will probably be a point in the not too distant future where we have to start to look at slowing down that population growth. But we'll see what transpires. But either way, 30 new pups. Welcome to NorCal.
Yep.
All right, next story. Leonardo DiCaprio's NorCal film Thriller gets official title and 2025 release date. I saw this all over social media.
Yeah. I'm a big movie buff, so we cover movies that are filmed in Northern California. We always have. One of our most read articles on our website is like the top 20 movies that are filmed in Northern California. So earlier in this year in 2024, Leonardo DiCaprio, along with Paul Thomas Anderson, were filming in Humboldt, in Eureka. They were also filming all over Sacramento. But it was this super mysterious film that they were talking about. We'd kind of get tidbits. We know it's based on this book, Vineland, from Thomas Pynchon, this old novel. But we didn't know anything else about it. So now we know it's called The Battle of Batkin Cross, and it's set for theatrical release in 2025.
I'm pretty excited. Paul Thomas Anderson, famous for There Will Be Blood, such a dark movie, but unbelievably good actors and just portrayal of the entire story. But I'm excited to see it. Leo doesn't choose bad films to be part of these days. He's kind of the A of the A. And so I'm excited to see what the Thriller. I mean, it's a great cast, and represents NorCal. Also,
Sean Penn's in it, Regina Hall's in it, Tanaya Taylor. So it is a big blockbuster film. They're calling it a thriller. Now, I'm really I'm going to read Vineland. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Vineland. It was written in like the 70s, so I bought it. I'm looking forward to reading it before, and we'll have to do some sort of book club / movie review when it comes out. We have, almost a year until it comes out, but it's fun. And like you can see in the article on our website, there were pictures of Leo dressed up as sort of like a vagabond in front of Murphy's Market in Eureka. So it's going to be cool. And we know they filmed, just in downtown Sacramento, I think in front of the courthouse there. So
vagabond, what a good word.
Well, I look at him and I don't know what else to. He looks really interesting.
I don't know. He looks kind of like a dirt ball.
Honestly. Yeah, a dirt ball, vagabond. Yeah, same thing. So nothing much else to say. I'm sure they're going to continue to release more information on this, but the Battle of Batkin Cross, set it on your calendar, August 2025.
All right. Final NorCal note of the week. AT&T reaches a settlement to remove the cables from the bottom of Lake Tahoe.
Yeah, this is an interesting story. So AT&T set up these telecommunication cables that are near the Rubicon, Emerald Bay area of Lake Tahoe on the west, sort of the southwest side. And so the Wall Street Journal did an investigation in 2023, which revealed these high levels of lead in Lake Tahoe, specifically near where the cables were. So, of course, AT&T got their own investigation done, and they said, no, there's no levels of lead. It doesn't, well, it matters because I don't know who's right and who's wrong, but it doesn't matter because they're removing it. There was a lawsuit from the California Sport Fishing Protection Alliance, and they ended up settling, and they're removing it. So they're going to work with our friends over at the League to Save Lake Tahoe, otherwise known as Keep Tahoe Blue, to remove them, hopefully in the next year.
Keep Tahoe blue. You're not Tahoe isn't blue with a big old wire strewn across it on the bottom. This makes sense to me. I'm sure AT&T wasn't in favor of it because it's going to cost them money, and I'm sure that they chose a researchist that would potentially give them a favorable opinion. But hey, I am a AT&T
Me too.
customer,
I was just going to say
so I have no problem with who they are. I like the fact that they took it out of the lake, although they were forced to do so. And I think that we're going to see more and more of this as time goes on, as environmentalists look deeper into some of these companies' practices.
Yeah. So it's the stark comparison between the two different testing. AT&T said they didn't find anything. This investigation by the Wall Street Journal said that the lead contamination levels were 2,533 times the Environmental Protection Agency's limit for drinking water. So that, to me, is a shitload of lead, right?
Way too much.
So how is it that AT&T went in there and said, oh, no, they're good? Again, it doesn't matter. And based on the announcement with like the League to Save Lake Tahoe, they're like, we're not going to fight over this anymore. It doesn't matter because they're coming out. And that's all we wanted out of this anyway. They're not going to, I'm sure part of the settlement is we're not going to talk bad about AT&T, But I do want to say that, the League to Save Lake Tahoe does awesome work. And they, all the publicity surrounding the trash on the lake July 4th, they did a really good job of actually organizing it and cleaning it up this year and making sure people knew not to do it. So they just do awesome work. I'm just a huge fan.
I agree. And that wraps up the NorCal Notes of the Week.
Okay, so those were like this week's NorCal Notes. So what we're going to do next is I want to go over, since we haven't done this in a while, I want to go over some of the big news from the year. So let's do a 2024 NorCal Notes.
Okay, a couple stories we missed while we were gone. I think a big one that social media definitely blew up about, I know everyone in my life was talking about it, was how the Northern Lights finally came to Northern California this winter.
Active NorCal has become the #1 resource for witnessing the Aurora Borealis in Northern California. And look, I know it's rare. I know this isn't Iceland. I know this isn't Alaska. but we get it every once in a while. And the reason I'm so passionate about it is because I've seen them myself over Mount Shasta. So anytime there's these reports of the sun eruptions and everything, we like to report on it. The problem with that is the comment section will murder you if you get it wrong, right? Like, oh, hey guys, we think you might be able to see the Northern Lights in NorCal tonight. You go up there, it's a dud, and they kill me. So, we reported in December 2023 that this is the peak of an 11-year sun cycle known as the solar maximum, and the solar maximum basically is the best year for Northern Lights of the 11-year cycle, right? So every 11 years we have these good years. So we reported this. Everyone said, oh, you're full of it. Boom, May 11th happens. May 11, 2024 was the craziest Northern Lights display I have ever seen in Northern California. It was pretty cool.
I didn't see it. I'm not in person, but I saw, I don't know, hundreds of images from friends, family, just the interwebs of all of the most gorgeous images of the Aurora Borealis in Northern California. It was really cool. I didn't even ever know it was possible to get that up down here as far as we have seen it. But yeah, it just it kind of took over the internet.
Yeah, it was really cool. And obviously every single big photographer in the area was all over it. You know, there were a lot of reports that it could happen, and sure enough, it did. And sure enough, it was huge. So,
and then it kept happening.
And it kept happening. And, you know, there were a lot of small occasions that it happened throughout the summer. You know, photographers. And a lot of these smaller occasions, it's hard to see with the human eye unless you're out there at 2 a.m. actually looking for it. But these photographers are out there, and with their camera, they can manipulate it to show it better. But then something really cool happened in August. What is it? August 11th. Was the Perseid meteor shower. And, you know, that's another thing we like to report on. I love the Perseid meteor shower. So photographers went out to witness the Perseid meteor shower. And guess what? The Northern Lights exploded that night. And so there's all these great pictures of the Northern Lights with meteors flying across the sky. It was one of the most, you know, unique star viewing experiences you're ever going to get. So that was sort of the big story. In fact, it was so big, I wrote about it in my pub note of the Active NorCal Magazine as a reminder why we do it. Because to me, you know, digital publishing is a lot of, again, comment section warriors. You suck. You know, you guys are wrong on this. You guys don't know what you're talking about. And actually, you know, there's probably not many people who read up on this stuff as much as I do for the Northern California region. So it's kind of my way of sticking the middle finger at them and saying, you know what? I was right, and this is why I do it.
You do tend to read the comment sections a little bit more than you should. You probably less than most other editors, if I'm being honest, but I don't pay attention to it at all.
Well, we also get a lot of spam that I got to delete, so that too. But, you know, I am, it just pops up on my notifications, and so I'll just check out one, you know, and yeah, comment section warriors are the worst. But this is the reason why we do it. These little moments in time that are, you know, amazing for outdoor culture in Northern California. So I like to relish in it.
I do too. Yeah. Shout out NorCal. Shout out Aurora Borealis. Shout out all the photographers, honestly.
All the photographers. You know, I actually quoted him in my pub note, Jake Edwards. You can seen Scapery on both Instagram and Facebook. He is a phenomenal photographer in the Lassen area. But he got some of the greatest photos I've ever seen. Honestly, if you were a photographer and you missed it, you're kind of embarrassed, right? Like, it was...
But if you had planned accordingly, you probably had the night of your life.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so we got views of Aurora Borealis over Yosemite, over Tahoe, over Mount Shasta, over Humboldt, all the major locations. we now have beautiful pictures of the Northern Lights over them. So,
and we'll have those forever. Hopefully
have
we
them
get
forever.
to see it again in the coming years as well.
Well, what's 11 years from now? 35, so 2035.
I'll still be around.
Although this year's not over, we might have another 1 or 2 left.
We shall see.
Yep.
Okay, a big thing that happened in NorCal since we've kind of been away is that the Klamath River flows free for the first time in 100 years because of dam removal.
We actually talked about this a ton in our podcast. This is how long it's been in the works, right? And even it was in the works well before we started the podcast. The removal of it's the largest dam removal and river restoration project.
Don't glaze over that. Hammer down on that point.
The largest dam removal project in the history of the United States.
Never has a bigger one ever been done in the history of the United States. This dam removal is bigger than anything anybody's ever done before.
Yes. So they began working on this in 2023. Actually, the removal process, they began working on 2023. And then in August, just, a few weeks ago, a month ago, they actually finalized, they actually got rid of the final dam. So there were 4 dams that they removed, and the Klamath River now flows freely. Now, why is that important? It's important for a lot of reasons. One, and let me just get this out of the way. Those dams were not for water storage. Water storage is super important. We'll definitely next week talk about the site's reservoir, which just cleared a major hurdle. But water storage, like Shasta Dam's important, Lake Oroville's important. These were not water storage dams. These were hydroelectric dams that produce electricity, but they are so outdated that the amount of money it would take to update them in order to grab electricity and to fit into regulations, modern day regulations, it just wasn't worth it. So actually, it's a smart financial decision to remove them. This is something that was, built with public money, and private companies were able to gain the electricity and then sell it off. So it's a good financial decision for California. Also, salmon were decimated by these dams. Decimated. I mean, just Northern California in general, they talk about being able to walk across rivers on the backs of salmon. The salmon runs were so great a couple hundred years ago. There were just no salmon left. So now these salmon can, and I think it's going to happen very quickly, and especially because they have a new fish hatchery that they're actively trying to promote new salmon. But finally, and not last, but certainly not least, is the Native American culture surrounding this river. This river, is critical to the Native American communities up there. And so they have their river back. They have, the fish that's so important to them back. I think it's good all around.
I agree. I think that this is the beginning of seeing a lot more of this. We're going to be seeing a lot more dams removed for similar reasons. If it's not up to date as far as standards, as far as how we look at the local environment. I mean, the fish population was a huge part of it. Especially, our father's been talking about this story for so many years, and now seeing it come to fruition. I think that we're going to be seeing a lot more of this in the coming years.
Yeah, so there are currently, I believe, 6 dams sort of being considered for removal throughout California. The biggest one would be the Eel River Dam, the Scott Dam on the Eel River, which I believe there's 2 actually on the Eel River that, if removed, would create California's longest free-flowing river. So the Eel River is longer than the Klamath River, right? And it's in a similar position. PG&E owns it. PG&E doesn't get enough electricity out of it. It doesn't want to pay money to update it. It doesn't want to pay money to, comply with regulations. So they're like, yeah, it's not worth it. Let's get rid of it. And so not only, again, no water storage. So not only are you making a good financial decision, but then you have steelhead and salmon that get to swim through to the Eel River. So this is a new trend. Again, if you don't know about if you're not up to date on this stuff, this has nothing to do with water storage. I am huge into Sites Reservoir. That's the new lake that they're trying to build in the next 10 years. That's going to bring significant water storage. We need to build stuff like that. Like Sites Reservoir is really good because it just takes it like sucks water out of the Sacramento River, puts it in a lake, and just keeps it there. It's not. You wouldn't stop the Sacramento River anywhere. You wouldn't build a dam. And I think stuff like that is we just need to get better with our technology instead of ruining these ecosystems while we're trying to get water.
Absolutely. It's outdated stuff. I look forward to seeing.
Klamath River is back, baby.
Yes, sir. Okay. Another story that happened, and we're going to have to talk about this a bit.
Okay.
Because you wrote down this as a headline, and I don't know if I agree with your wording, but first confirmed fatal bear attack in California's history happened not too long ago. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so this might surprise some people, but and of course this isn't...
There's a couple of things that surprised me in this story, honestly.
Yeah, so there has never been a confirmed bear attack in the state of California. Fatal bear attack in the state of California since they've been keeping these records.
Which is crazy to me.
So, of course, back in the 1800s, early 1900s, that when there were grizzly bears in the state, bears were killing people. No doubt about that. I don't have any anecdotes on me, but I know it just to be the case. There were like 10,000 grizzly bears in the state when settlers came in, so I'm sure they were killing people. But this was in Downeyville. It was a 71-year-old woman who was found dead in her home, and evidence showed that there was a bear in the house. Now, people, when the sheriffs came in and the CDFW came in to sort of investigate, they eventually concluded that the woman didn't die and the bear came in. The bear actually killed the woman. So, again, that's the first confirmed recorded fatal bear attack in California's history.
So, in the article I'm reading, I'll quote it. Investigators believe that Miss Miller had passed away before the bear entered her residence.
They believed that initially, and then they found evidence that she was actually killed by the bear.
So, they also had to force their way into her home. How did the bear get in? If there was just no clear, easy way to get into the house.
I'm not sure.
Did the bear lock the door on its way out? It just seems peculiar.
As the story goes, this woman had trouble with this particular bear for a while. Anyone that knows Downeyville, it's a remote area, northwestish of Tahoe. Downeyville's known for its awesome mountain biking and its great little community. But, you're in there with the animals in Downeyville. And apparently she had her issues with this specific bear. Again, she's 71. I don't know her health before that. I don't know how the bear killed her. I don't know what the bear, if the bear... nipped at her or whatever after she was already done. I don't know what the evidence was. They didn't release that.
Right.
But what they did say is they now believe that the bear killed her.
That's wild to me. But I guess let's just let this be a warning to those that live in bear-infested bear communities that they're not friendly. Don't feed them. If they're around your house, they are a threat to your life. So just know that, yes, there hasn't been a fatality by a bear in a really long time, but they are capable.
And again, this is why I don't know what her condition was as a 71-year-old woman.
71's not that old, if I'm being fair.
Yeah, but it's old for some people, right?
Some people,
yeah,
I guess.
Again, I just don't know her. I don't know her story, but there's all sorts of stories, like in Tahoe, of bears breaking into homes looking for food. Someone coming in and the bear feels trapped and the bear kind of attacks the person. So maybe, the bear, did something to the woman and she died of a heart attack. So I don't know. it's super rare now. We've had a lot of controversy with bears. There was the bear in Mammoth Lakes that was just euthanized after it went into a campsite. It started eating food and stuff, and then it kind of swiped at a woman's. Oh, the woman was standing right there. It kind of swiped at her leg, and they ended up going. It was a beloved bear. Everyone knew Victor the bear, and so these things are happening. I think bears are more and more. We're seeing it in real life. Bears are getting more and more comfortable with humans. So people just need to know how to act around bears. The woman who was swiped at in Mammoth Lakes, I'm sure the woman in Downeyville knew how to handle bears and something just went awry. But the woman in Mammoth Lakes didn't know how to be around a bear. And we just need to teach the public what to do when there are bears around.
Yeah, hopefully this is the last story we have to talk about bear fatality. I have a feeling it's not going to be, but hopefully it is.
Yep.
Either way, it happened while we were gone.
Mm-hmm.
The last quick thing we want to talk about, NorCal community rebukes famed hippie gathering.
Yeah, so this happened over the summer. The Rainbow Family Gathering, I had never heard of. It is this is just a fascinating story to me, and it was a big story on our website, so I just wanted to talk about it. So the Rainbow Family Gathering is this big hippie festival. 10,000 people come to it. What's interesting about them is they're very secretive. They don't have a leader. They don't have an organization, right? And so what they do is they use word of mouth to set up these giant festivals. They get zero permitting. They get zero permission from the public lands, from the community, whatever. And they sort of sneak onto these lands and have these giant festivals. It's, you think of like Burning Man just happened. I saw all the videos and stuff. They get a ton of permitting. They do, they leave the place better than when they got there, all that sort of stuff. And these people, the Rainbow Family, they don't have that. And I'm sure a lot of them do their best to clean up afterwards, but they don't, they don't have to answer to anyone because they're not an actual organization. They have no leaders. So they're planned, and they do this around the country. They did it in Colorado, they did it in Arizona, and this year they chose the Plumas National Forest, right? And so word got out, and the sheriffs shut down the roads. The Forest Service put an issued no-go into the Plumas National Forest. They essentially, the community shut it down, and they ended up moving it a little bit down the road. I think like 1,800 people came, but they were pissed.
Who were pissed?
The hippies.
Yeah.
And, this is what you get by, like, they're saying, oh, they don't like counterculture stuff. It's not that. If you don't get permits,
it's just the rules.
You're unaccountable.
Exactly.
You have no accountability. So
Burning Man has insurance.
Yeah.
Like these companies, these organizations are this particular event. If somebody got hurt, there's so many things that are just wrong with it. They're just disorganized, and they're doing it in a way that they shouldn't be doing it. They're doing it in an outdated way. You can be a modern hippie. You don't have to be 60s. We don't do computers. We don't do things like that. There's ways to do this properly. I think there are many good examples of festivals that do this properly. And so, yeah, I don't have a problem with the community being like, no, this is not how we're going to do things. And, everyone considers Northern California like kind of the home of where hippies began, San Francisco, counterculture. But in the last 50 years, Northern California specifically has gotten a lot more conservative.
Mm-hmm.
You look at San Francisco as like literally the center of the hippie movement, but outside of San Francisco, Northern California is a pretty conservative place. And so, yes, you have the stoner hippies, which I consider myself one of, but you can do it in a way that is modern. That isn't, I'm of the 60s, I'm a flower child, I don't have a computer, I don't do anything like that. There's a new way of doing it.
The strain you put on a community by bringing 10,000 people unannounced is massive. And there's environmental damage that can be done. There are structural issues that can be done. Also, the Plumas National Forest has ancestral lands of Native Americans, and they don't want it trampled on, right? So there's all these different people you have to worry about. We all share public lands. So, for me, I actually loved what they did in saying, no, we'll let you come here, but you got to go through the rules. You have to go through the process so we can keep you accountable. The public lands is for everyone, and we need to keep it pristine for everyone. So this was a big story throughout the region, and I'm glad that it worked out, well. From what I know, no damage occurred or anything like that. So,
and yes, we missed a lot while we were gone, but that wraps up the NorCal notes we missed in 2024.
Okay, so I want to wrap up by talking about the probably the biggest video we've had on YouTube, and so we're going to talk about Lemurians today. Let's take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about Lemurians. The Talking NorCal podcast is brought to you by the Active NorCal Magazine, the premier destination for outdoor content in Northern California. A $30 subscription will get you 2 issues a year, but check this out. I have a deal for you. By using the code Talking NorCal in the checkout, you can get $10 off your $30 subscription.
That is a 33% discount.
33.33% discount. The Active NorCal magazine is awesome. We cover all sorts of great stuff in the issues. We have our winter editions. We have our spring, summer editions. So subscribe to the podcast. Again, it's Talking NorCal is the promo code. Go to store.activenorcal.com, click on magazine, subscribe. It's really great. We appreciate the support.
Listen, if you go outside in Northern California at all, just going outside of a building, you are perfect to read this magazine. There is exclusive content in this magazine that you will not find anywhere else. Again, promo code Talking NorCal gets you a 33 1/3 discount off of an annual subscription. Let's go.
If you have left a couch within the past 3 years, you should get this magazine. Once again, promo code Talking NorCal. That's the Active NorCal magazine. Now back to the pod.
All right, I got to say that since we've been gone, the one topic that I've missed talking about is Lemurians. Let's get into it.
Yeah, so I have to provide, let's go back literally more than 100 years ago. I think more than 100 years ago. Lemurians are this big legend of Mount Shasta. People believe that this ancient civilization lives in Mount Shasta in the City of Gold. And this has been a long discussed topic on this podcast, on our website. There's all sorts of, people who live in Mount Shasta that believe in this stuff and like this stuff. So back in 1904, British prospector J.C. Brown claimed that he found an underground city 11 miles deep in Mount Shasta full of gold, shields, and mummies, some of which were 10 feet tall. So he told this to everyone. Everyone went nuts, right? They compiled this 80-person team to follow him down the hole into the city and go check it out. The day that everyone got together, J.C. Brown did not show up. He was never seen again. Fast forward to, I think 2021, maybe? Wait, let me look at this. I want to get this right. 2022, a man named Lowell Johnson came out and said, I visited the city of Telos in Mount Shasta. He talks about how he went up on a hike, how he was greeted by
Alexander was his Lemurian. Alex
was the name of the Lemurian, brought him into the city, showed him all these different levels. There's hydroponic levels, there's living levels, City of Gold, there's like a big pyramid in the middle, all this great stuff. If you haven't heard this, go back on our YouTube page and check it out. We go deep in it, and I think it has a decent amount of views. I have talked to Lowell a couple times. After he saw the clip of the podcast, he wanted to come on the podcast. We also covered it on our website, which actually got many, many page views. And I decided not to have him on the podcast. We said this in the original video. We're not making fun of him. We're not saying that it didn't happen. You know, everyone can believe.
I'm more of a skeptic.
Yeah, I'm a skeptic for sure. I like the story. I like the idea of it. It's fun. So I received an email, and I actually receive a lot of Lemurian emails because our articles on Lemuria get read quite a bit on our website. A lot of them are pretty wild, and I usually don't, look at them much. But I did get this email about Lowell Johnson in particular that I thought we'd need to talk about. Lowell Johnson is probably going to see this. I'm sorry, Lowell, but, we just speak the truth on this podcast, and we're not going to ignore this. So the subject line was Lowell Johnson, what everyone needs to know. It came from Chris Hancock in Franklin, Tennessee. And I'll just read some of this. It's kind of a long email. Hi, my name is Chris Hancock. I'm 54 years old, licensed psychotherapist in Tennessee. I came across a mention of Active NorCal podcast in Lowell's atrocious and fallacious book, The Example. First and foremost, I had no idea that Lowell put a mention of our podcast in his book. That's interesting.
We got to find that quote, what he wrote about us.
And, part of me thinks that he's using this podcast to validate his story. We just like these stories. I mean, we're not reporting on we just like talking about this stuff. So that was interesting that he talked about a podcast in his book. Anyway, Chris Hancock goes on. Then I remember coming across your podcast episode and your colleague, you and your colleague discussing Lowell and his Tilo story. Some time back. It seems many, including me for a time, have been captivated by Lowell and his Tilo story. I've been to Mount Shasta twice and have connected in meditation he goes into some stuff that I don't even know. So as a result, direct of my experience, I'm a believer in the myth surrounding Telos, Lemurian, Lemuria, etc. The reason I'm writing you is quite sad and could be a difficult pill to swallow. At least it was for me. To the tune of $4,500, Lowell Johnson scammed me out of that likely I'll never see again. I trusted but didn't verify. In any case, truth and integrity must be paramount. I'm sure you'd agree. So he goes on to saying that Lowell scheduled this 4 to 5 day inclusive immersive retreat on Mount Shasta. And this guy was into it. He wanted to go.
Well, he probably, do you think, excuse me, Lowell reached out to him to be part of it as somebody who was actually a participant or somebody that would be adding to the...
No, he would be a participant in this, immersive retreat. These people they want to go on Mount Shasta with the guy who went inside, right? And not only, again, go back and watch our old video. Lowell talks about he met with this whole, he was the chosen one to bring Telos and humans together.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So this guy sent Lowell $4,500, and he bought a plane ticket, all this stuff, and then Lowell canceled the event last minute, saying his brother had a stroke and promised to refund his $4,500.
Now, this is the second time he canceled this, according to this email.
Yes,
so last minute for the second time he canceled it, in fact.
He kept saying he was going to refund him. He kept providing excuses why he didn't, and then he just never refunded him. So this guy goes on. As it turns out, as anyone can find online through public records, blah, 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 Lowell Edward Johnson Jr., a.k.a. Starbuck, that's his Instagram name, is in fact a lifelong serial thief, conman, and grifter. One with a prior criminal record, a felony in the 70s for which he did 3 years in jail, a string of failed businesses, multiple unpaid lawsuits, civil judgments, liens, evictions, you name it. behind him.
Allegedly, we're reading.
Yeah, this
from
is
the
what
email.
he's saying. We're not
alleging this.
Yes, yeah. Well, this is what he's alleging.
Right.
We're not even alleging this. He goes on to say he's heard a lot of people. We've personally spoken to several victims of his crime, and they all say they've been scammed, robbed, conned, etc. Long of the short, he found evidence that Lowell never actually booked anything that he said he was going to for this retreat, which is, in his words, intent to fraud, blah, blah, blah. So he said, I'm alerting anyone, really, that's come across him that he is a scam artist. So I go back to, and I'll let you speak on this in a second because I'm sure you have a million thoughts. You're just now hearing this for the first time. I go back to J.C. Brown in 1904, 1906?
1904.
That vanished without a trace, right? Is this just a long line of people strumming up this Lemuria legend by writing books, by doing, media, all this different stuff to make a buck and then bounce? That is what I'm seeing this as. But what's your thoughts?
Absolutely. So you kind of, in the outline of this podcast, you wrote, is the guy who said he visited Lemurians in Mount Shasta full of shit? And the answer is yes.
Well,
I think Lowell is full of shit. Now, I always have.
You said that in the first.
I always have. I don't believe in Lemurians. I love having conversation. Somebody very close to me in my life does believe in Lemurians, and it is one of my favorite things to talk with her about because we couldn't be further on the side of she believes that I do not. I think that it started in 1904 with a guy that's like, I'm going to make a quick buck. All of these people that he was going to bring up to show this, I'm sure he gained financially from that, right? There is no record of that, but I can almost assure you this man gained and then disappeared. He literally ghosted. They didn't have that term back then, but they do now. Now, this isn't necessarily a ghost situation, and he does give, Lowell gives that his brother had a stroke or what have you, but either way, he never paid back that $4,500. If it was me, if it was $4,500, I probably would do exactly what this guy did, copy and paste an email to every Northern California media outlet that you could find on the internet. So I'm on his side. What's his name? Chris Hancock.
Yeah.
Chris Hancock, I'm on your side. I believe you, although there is no evidence. Allegedly, this guy stole $4,500 from you, and if it were me in your situation, I'd do the exact same thing.
Yeah, from all the, from comment section stuff to the emails I get to the DMs I get about this Lemuria stuff, it's mostly people talking about, it's true, I know it's true, I had this experience, all that, it's this is the first time I've had someone, not with proof that it's not true, but saying, hey, I at least know one of the leaders of, pushing the message further is full of shit. So, take that what you will. But you go to the funky stores in Mount Shasta, which I love.
Listen, I love the spirituality of Mount Shasta. Do I think that the Mount Shasta as a mountain has spiritual entities to it? I absolutely do. Do I believe there's a Lemurian city 11 miles under it that has this magical powers? Without a question, I do not. I do not believe that.
And we've met plenty of people who talk about, the power of Mount Shasta and being able to meditate there and connect with the mountain and nature. And there is something real to that, I think. Probably does not come in the form of a city under the mountain. But back to these funky little stores that I love in Mount Shasta. They all have these Lemurian books in them, right? So people are making money off this. If you're selling books on this stuff, people are making money off this.
We're getting page views.
We are actively making money. I spoke at a conference and I said, this article that I wrote 5 years ago has probably made me $10,000. Just off ads and podcasts and YouTube and everything.
And honestly, and we haven't talked about this, and I don't even know if we should. We've been approached to do a documentary about Lemurians in Mount Shasta. So, like, this is not a small topic, and people are clearly making money with this topic.
Yeah, so that's a good point. Full disclosure, we have made money off this, but I think we've made money off trying to be as real as possible about it. If not, you know, I'm sort of, I just like the story. I think it'd be fun. I don't necessarily believe it's true. I definitely don't believe it's true. But I just think it's a fun story. But yeah, so no shocker that the guy who does all this stuff is reportedly a grifter. And, you know, I'm sure we'll hear from him about it, whatever. I also, you know, I follow him on Instagram. He shares like all these AI images of what Lemuria looks like. And it's kind of, it's fun, but he's doing something to make money off it, right? No one posts all this stuff for the fun of it, right?
I agree. Now, Lowell probably has an opinion that's different than this gentleman, and he's probably going to want to give us his take on it. And I don't think we necessarily need to interview him on the podcast, but if Lowell, if you want to hit us up in the DMs, if you want to email us, give us your side, we'll read it just like we read his. We're not saying everything that this guy's saying is true. It sounds kind of legit. And you know, you kind of put out almost salacious type story. And so we would like to hear your side. So Lowell, if you're watching this, hearing this
in written form,
written form. We don't want to interview. Listen, if you send us an email and what you say in it sounds like something that we would want to interview and put you on the podcast, maybe we will. I'm not saying we won't. We emphatically will not. But let's start with an email.
I'm not in the business of platforming grifters, but yeah, if
alleged grifters,
yeah, we're being real safe.
Hey,
here. Look. I did want to platform this guy who clearly is upset and to me has no reason to make up this story. He sent it. He's just. I think he's trying to get a platform to say that he's a grifter. So,
and he doesn't want this to happen to other people again. He says that in his message. It happened to me. I just don't want it to happen again. So whatever I could do to prevent that, I'd like to do.
Yeah. So in terms of famous, well, I don't know about famous, but the people who talked about claim to see Telos, 2 out of 2 are full of shit.
Well, yeah, I mean, one disappeared.
One disappeared. He might have just gone into
somebody
Telos.
could have murdered him because Telos could have come in and, you know, they could have sent some Lemurians to assassinate him, you know. So he's probably full. Listen, if you have experienced a Lemurian, we should have like a 1-800 number. If you have experienced Lemurians in the Mount Shasta area, please contact the Active NorCal podcast, otherwise known as Talking NorCal.
And I think we can end there, right? We're back. This was our Sea Legs episode.
It's good to be back.
It's good to be back. We talked about a lot of stuff. We're going to get more into the interview process next week. We got some great interviews we're setting up. But, you know, this kind of gets us rolling again with the news and catching everyone up and getting reacquainted with us. As a podcast, we're going to continue to obviously update our website with all the great news, our social media pages. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Pinterest, Twitter/X, YouTube. We're everywhere. So follow us wherever you get a chance. Go check out all the news on ActiveNorCal.com. And finally, most importantly, subscribe to the Active NorCal Magazine. The official magazine of Active NorCal. Use the code Talking NorCal at checkout to get $10 off. That's a $20 subscription for the Active NorCal magazine with the code Talking NorCal. Thanks for listening. We'll see everyone next week.
NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and I could spend all day just chilling in the South Bay. We're NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and Darren knows how to do to kick it down in Santa Cruz. We're NorCal, we're hella NorCal.